Hey YouTube land, Tala Durith here, doing another action figure review, well actually two action figure review, one of which I have a box for, one of which I don't, but I decided to lump these two in together even though they're from two different shows, but they are pretty much similar in the sense that they are from kind of the same faction within the TV series that they are from, and that faction being Imperial. Well, technically one is not Imperial, but it is an Imperial disguise, and one is an Imperial officer, and technically she's an ex-Imperial, if you watch the show. So we'll get into that in a minute. So the one I have the box for is the Tala Durith, I think is how you Tala Durith, I think you pronounce her name, Imperial officer. She is from the Obi-Wan Kenobi TV series that Disney Plus put out. I have the box for her. She comes in the the windowless box style packaging. So on the brief write-up, it says Obi-Wan Kenobi is set years after the dramatic events of Star Wars Revenge of the Sith, where Kenobi faced the corruption of his friend and Jedi apprentice Anakin Skywalker turned Sith Lord Darth Vader. So there's not much about her on the back of the box. It's just a kind of brief synopsis of kind of the Obi-Wan series and where it plays, and then it's just repeated in several different languages, and then just showcases an image of the figure on all the sides. I picked this one up in Smith's. They're currently having kind of a sale on Black Series stuff, so she was actually cheaper than normal. She was down to about 10 or 15 euro, so she was a bit cheaper than normal. The regular price of Black Series figures over here in Ireland tend to be all over the place. Coming out new, they can be anywhere between 25 to 40 euros, which is insanely expensive. Some of the harder to get stuff like the holiday special stuff or the holiday seasonal stuff are ridiculously overpriced over here. In my opinion, they're ridiculously overpriced. Maybe other people might feel happy spending nearly 50 quid on a single 6-inch scale figure, but that's not me. I think overall she's a really good sculpt. It is a handy figure to get if you're even considering army building this, because if as she is cheap enough at the moment, and there is a fairly distinctive lack of female Imperial officer figures in the Star Wars universe, she'd be a pretty good one to get and army build, and possibly do a couple of head swaps if you have other kind of in-scale heads. The one thing is her cap, the Imperial officer cap, is not removable, and it is a separate piece that's glued on over the head. So in theory, if you were potentially deciding to customize this figure, you could probably boil and pop this head cap off and use it with whatever head you're trying to fit on. It would require some sculpting, or you could just leave the cap off whatever head. If it's a fairly reasonable size female head sculpt, you could probably pop the head off and just leave her without the cap. But overall, it's a really cool officer design. Now, I have one QC issue on mine, and it came like this out of the packaging. She has this kind of, it's almost like glue residue or something, where it's melted a bit of the body. It's not too bad because the belt and waist area hides it for the most part, but if you bend her back, it does become visible. But overall, it's not too visible for the most part. She does come with the standard Imperial officer sidearm, which has a working holster, which isn't too bad. And it's that kind of small pistol. It's a different pistol than what the Scout Troopers use, but it is again, if I remember correctly, it is another World War II era pistol that was modified. In fact, I think it was some sort of was it like a grapple or something like that? It was some sort of tool anyway. The interesting thing about this pistol design is it was technically, I'm trying to remember which one came first. I'm pretty sure Star Wars came first, so I think it was robbed by the crew from Aliens, or not Aliens, but Alien, the Nostromo suits. There's a pistol that hangs off the spacesuits, and I don't have one handy, unfortunately. But if you look at the NECA design ones, the pistol that they use is exactly like this, except I think it doesn't have the scope piece. It has a smaller kind of thing on top, but it's the exact same. It has a kind of clip piece at the front, and it has a very similar design. So I'm not sure where they sourced it from, because the original Star Wars and Alien were both filmed in England at the time, and I have a feeling they might have been both filmed in the same studio lots. They probably had a lot of armory stuff, crossovers and stuff like that, or set pieces crossover, because I do know, I think it was either Aliens or it was one of the other films, the sets got reused in another science fiction film, and I can't remember which one off the top of my head. Possibly might have been that Outlander one with Sean Connery. I have a feeling it might have been that. But like at the time during the 80s and 70s and 80s, there was probably a lot of crossover and saving on money on the props department, so they just reused props from other films and just made slight alterations so they wouldn't look as obvious. But all in all, she's not a bad figure, and I know I'm kind of rambling. She does have a double jointed neck, so her neck here moves, and then there's one at the base of her head, so she has the double jointed neck. She has a swivel in arms and go all the way around, and she can angle out her arm that much. She has a single joint in the elbow with a swivel, and it just gets just above 90-degree bend, which is nice. She has swivel in the wrist, and there is a hinge hidden in the wrist, but it's hard to see, but it is a up and down hinge. Again, as you saw, the waist, she has good waist movement, nothing else lower than that. She has the hip articulation that is standard for these figures, so she has a hip can go out that much. She's not too much hindered by the side skirt. There's a split down the side to give her that bit more range of access for their movement. There is a upper thigh swivel, which is quite hidden. Her pants do look really kind of, it's almost looks like they took the male figures, this thing at the sides where they kind of plume out just looks way too big for her figure, or like her proportions, I should say, more than her figure. But it looks like they took the upper legs from one of the male figures and just stuck it on to save on sculpting, maybe. But they just look really kind of out of place is probably the best way to look. It doesn't look like they fit her form, but that could be just me. I might be just looking at it awkwardly. She has single jointed knee with a swivel, and she gets a 90-degree bend, and then she does have rocker ankles with a ratchet, and she has peg hold on the front of her feet, and she has the rocker ankle and the hinge, I should say. So, and she does stand fairly reasonably well, assuming I get her back into a standing pose without her legs being too wobbly, but she does stand fairly well. And then for Andor, he's a slight bit different. Again, just like with, was it Tala? Yeah, just with Tala, the hat is non-removable. Again, I picked this guy up pretty cheap, actually. Over here, there is a store called Sports Direct, and at the moment, as part of Black Friday, which was a couple of weeks ago now at this stage, they did a thing where they have overstock, I suppose is the best word to call it, from Game. Now, if you're not familiar with Game, we used to have two stores over here in Ireland, one called Game, one called GameStop. You might be more familiar, depending where you're living, with GameStop. That seems to be a more popular one. Game seemed to be a Game in England, and Game over here were kind of the same parent company. About, I want to say, at this stage, nearly 9-10 years ago, they folded up in Ireland and they concentrated on their stores in England. And it seems now that with Sports Direct, I think they must be owned by the same parent company, so they brought it back slightly for Black Friday. Now, they don't really have much in the way of actual games. There's only one store that I saw over here, and I know I'm rambling again, but only one store over here in my local area that I saw that had actual video games in it. The other ones just had collectibles, so I'm not sure how deep they're going into it, but they had a whole bunch of overstock stuff from their stores in England, I would imagine, that they were trying to get rid of and get clearance on. So there's a lot of Black Series, Marvel Legends, those Marvel Retro 3.75-inch 5 points figures, and some of the Marvel Legends retro figures, the kind of, classic cartoon card back stuff. And they have them at various prices. Some are reasonable. Oh, and they also have Transformers. They have some of the Studio Series and the Kingdom and other kind of Transformers lines. But they do have some Black Series stuff, and I have managed to pick up a couple of Black Series stuff pretty cheap. This guy himself, Cassian, set me back €5, so that's not bad for this figure. He was the only one, unfortunately, in the store. If I had seen more, I probably would have picked up an extra one or two for that price so I could customize. Again, customization potential on general kind of Imperial officer stuff is pretty high. So if you didn't want Cassian's head, now unlike Tala's, his head is just on a single ball joint at the base of the neck, but you could easily pop this off, swap out the head for some other generic head, and again, you'd have to peel off the cap if you wanted to keep a cap piece for it and put it onto the new head, or just leave it without the cap. But this is essentially the same body as the, excuse me, it's the same body as the, is it Fennec officer? This is the, oh, I had the name of it. It's something heist version of him when he's in disguise. Let me see if I can bring up the name. It's the Aldhani mission heist that they do. So he's in a trooper or not trooper disguise, but a Imperial disguise. I'm not sure if these are supposed to be drivers or something. He has that look of the. He uses a lot of components from the original Solo Minban figure, because you can even see where the piping goes in at the back of this. If you had the Solo Minban, he has like a rebreather mask thing that connects onto his face, and the pipe sort goes into this back piece. So it is a reuse of that. Even the cloak, if you have the cloak from that figure, would probably fit on this guy as well. But he has pretty much the same articulation as that figure, so arms can swivel around, can hinge out. Head is on a single ball joint, which is the reason why this is on a single ball joint as opposed to the double ball joints that a lot of newer figures have, because it was an older figure reused. In fact, does the stamp on the bottom, manufacturer stamp, have a date on it to see when this particular body was made? Unfortunately, I don't see anything on it for when this block body, whatever you want to call it, was made. But he does have the diaphragm joint, single joint elbows, but with a over 90-degree bend, which is quite nice. Swivel in the wrist, hinge on those wrists. Again, just like with Tala, he has the split stuff. There's a split going down the side on the side skirt to give him a bit more range of movement. You can move forward that much. It does. The skirt on this one is a little longer, so it does hinder it a bit. He does have that hidden thigh swivel. He does have the single jointed knee. Unlike Tala, he actually has the boot swivel as well, and then he has the hinge for the rocker hinge and the forward and back on the ankle. And again, just like with Tala, he has, it's very tight in the holster. Come on out. He does have that same Imperial blaster or pistol, whichever way you want to call it, and it will fit nicely or snugly. Actually, I don't think, did I even try it in one of his hands? His right hand is designed to be the trigger finger. In fact, I don't think I actually even put it into his hand when I got it. I just put it straight into the holster, so it is quite tight for the first time, and then it shouldn't be too bad after that, assuming I don't break the bloody thing. But let's get it in. It does fit. I know it does fit because it's the same body as Solo, but It's close enough. Actually, I think the handle on it is actually a lot smaller. It doesn't go all the way through his hand. But it is the same pistol. It's just the design of the hand, I think, is more designed for taking the... What did he have? I think it was the standard Imperial Stormtrooper blaster for this body normally. But he can hold it. It's a bit of tight fit, and it looks a little awkward. But if you jiggle it around a bit and get it right, it will probably won't look too bad. So pop that back into the holster, because I didn't realize I had just took it out and put it straight in the holster and not actually bothered trying it in the figure's hand. But I only picked this guy up yesterday, so I haven't really had much time to mess around with him. I mainly just got him because he's a good... You can probably customize him. You could even probably get away with resculpting some of the face if you're good with like green stuff or any of the milliput stuff. You could probably, instead of having to completely rip apart the head, you could probably maybe add some stuff to it and make it look like a different character. I've done that before on a couple of figures where I just put green stuff around to make a kind of beard or something, and then just repainted the skin a bit, and it actually looks reasonably good for a customization for a different character. So for another figure, for a size comparison from the same universe and same series, or not TV series, but same figure line series, here is cartoon version Boba Fett. We'll bring in some other figures for scale. Here is the Shadow Tracker from the G.I. Joe Classified line, which I've done a review on. And do I have anyone else close to hand that I want to bring in? Let's see if we can dig this guy out. Is that Penguin? Yeah, we got Penguin from... It's a supposed 6-inch line from the Batman 66. It can be a little bit kind of hit and miss on scale. I think it's like 6 inch, between 6 and 5.5, so it's a little bit all over the place. I was hoping he wouldn't knock over Andor. He's a little bit tricky. His feet, and I mentioned this in his review, his feet are actually kind of angled up at the front, so it's a bit of a pain in the butt to get this guy standing, and he has no actual peg holes on his feet, so it is a no, I'm just gonna leave him off. He's not gonna be there. He can just lie down there in front of the camera and you probably see him in the shot. I'll get Andor to stand back up. Yeah, I'm gonna leave this guy out because he's just gonna be a floppy mess. So, well, not so much floppy, but we will get, hopefully, this Adam West Batman. Hopefully he will stand a bit better. There we go. So yeah, there we go, Adam West Batman. And just for a scale, you can see Andor is around 6 inches and Tala is actually just around 5. She's just under. I'm assuming it's the whole female people or females are smaller than male characters, so I don't know. They seem to, could be the actress' actual height. I know some of the Black Series figure scales seem to be all over the place, but she does stand in just around under the 6 inches, but you could probably modify that if you had a way and means around it. But all in all, not too bad figures. As I said, I got both of these on sort of clearance prices. I did kind of bide my time. I did actually want to get the Tala figure when it came out, but it's just the prices over here for Black Series. I can't justify picking them up. They're nearly, as I said, they're nearly €25 a pop, and they go up from that, and you can find them from all manner of different prices, but finding them at kind of reasonably cheap prices is few and far between. But I was just lucky enough that I found the Andor figure. I mean, case in point, they had Andor for $5.99 in the same shop. They also had the Mon Mothma figure, which is also from the Andor series, and that figure was €28. So the prices are just mind-boggling all over the place. So do I recommend picking these two up? I do. As I said, the customization potential on both of them is pretty high, especially on Tala, because there's very little, as I said, very little of the female Imperial officer figures out there now at the moment. I think, did they do Mara Jade in, no, they haven't done Mara Jade in a Imperial officer uniform, and there's a few other kind of notable Imperial officer, female Imperial officers characters, but I don't think there's too many. I think this is the only one I can think of the top of my head that they've done a figure for in this scale. They have done some in the 3 3/4 inch scale, so, but all in all, not a bad figure, and I do recommend picking her up. So I'm going to wrap this up here because I've been waffling on for quite a bit now, looking at the timeline. But overall, I do recommend getting them. Would I pay full price? Depending on where you're living, because some places the full price on some of them aren't too bad, but and then you have to take in exchange rates into consideration. But overall, they're not bad figures, and they're good for customization. So there you go, guys. I hope you enjoyed me waffling on for this amount of time, and as always, please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe to my channel, and I hope you enjoy your day. Cheers, guys.